Welcome to the theater. Take a seat, grab some popcorn, and get ready for another horror movie double bill. This is Friday Night Fratricide.
Good evening, good evening. Come on in, settle down. Settle down. I said settle down, alright? You're here. It's fine, it's all good. You're with the happy brothers. It's Friday Night Fratricide. Everyone's happy.
Are they?
Well, we are.
I mean, I'm not particularly happy. I just watched Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah, that is a very fair point.
Yeah.
I am Fraser.
And I am Ewan.
You even sounded miserable introducing yourself. And you know what? You should feel bad.
I should.
You
I do. I feel
recommended this
incredibly
film.
guilty. I'm going to... Oh, man.
I'm going to intercut this. I'm going to intercut parts of the episode that we're talking about Halloween with you last week saying, like, how bad can it be? It can't be that bad. There must be some redeeming qualities.
It must
Malcolm
be.
McDowell's in it.
Malcolm McDowell is in it. In my defense, Malcolm McDowell
I mean, he is in it.
He is in the film.
It doesn't really show up, though.
I wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Oh,
we had a
God.
couple of doozies. Well, no, I don't know. See what you think about the Blob.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's all right.
Yeah. We did remakes this week. Remakes was our theme, and there's such a plethora of shit to choose from that I kind of struggled to find one that actually might be all right.
Yeah.
I think when we're looking at like films like these requels, like the new Halloween, the new Screams and stuff, they're kind of, I would argue they're not really remakes as such. They're more sequels.
They're not.
So I didn't really consider them when I was thinking about this. I was just thinking straight up remakes.
I think I did consider Scream 5, which was just called Scream. 5 Cream, as it should have been called.
5 Cream.
5 Cream. Because it was like kind of doing the thing of like soft reboot, sequel, requel thing. Like it was sort of about reboots. Or I guess Scream 4 was the one that was really about reboots.
Yeah, Scream 5 was like requels.
Yeah, not that big of a fan of the Scream franchise, but I've not seen 5 and 6, so...
I really liked 4.
Tempted.
I didn't like 5.
All right. I've not seen 5.
I've not seen 6 yet.
Anyway, we didn't pick those.
No, we didn't. We went
picked
for...
more cold cut.
Yeah.
Cold cuts, like from the deli.
Cool. Yeah, I picked pepperami and you picked the old pastrami that the deli owner has spat on.
Rotten pastrami. That's what this film is.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not talking about that film yet.
Not yet. Do you want to start with the Blob then?
We'll start with the Blob.
We'll start with the Blob.
Yeah.
Okay. The Blob. 1988, directed by Chuck Russell, who also did The Scorpion King, which...
Wow. Okay. Didn't realize that.
Baffled me, but yeah. All right. It's very much a cut and dry remake, a cold cut remake, as you said, of the 1950s Blob film, starring the one and only Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
It goes slightly different direction, as we find out very early on in the film. You know, in the 1950s, it's like the popular high school jock and his girlfriend, and they get trapped in a diner while escaping the Blob. Have you not seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Have you seen it? Okay.
No.
And it's all very lovey-dovey and like, you know, it's very, again, cut and dry horror for the 50s. This one took me right off guard watching it, because I didn't really know what to expect. I knew that it was a pretty gory film. I knew it was quite well known for a lot of the kills in it. Yeah. And now I understand why.
Surprisingly gory.
Yeah. But that was about all I knew about the film. So when it kicks off and we're introduced to our characters, we've got Brian Flagg, played by Kevin Dillon, who's like the sort of rebellious loner kid.
He wears a leather jacket.
He's got
long hair
and has a
drives
motorbike.
Motorcycle.
Yeah. And he's known by the sheriff for causing trouble, and he kind of is sort of sideways introduced. We don't really know what's going on with him, but we get introduced to Meg. I think it's Meg, played by Shawnee Smith. who I don't really recognise. Didn't recognise Kevin Dillon from anything either.
There weren't many actors in this that I knew from other things.
The only one I knew was Jeffrey DeMunn, who plays the sheriff.
Mm.
He's in The Walking Dead.
Oh, okay.
He's in the X-Files movie.
I've not watched much of The Walking Dead.
Something else that I can't remember. That's what I know him from.
There's one actor that's in it very briefly who plays a doctor. He's got a mustache, who was in Twin Peaks.
I think that's him. Maybe.
No, he was a doctor, not the sheriff.
Oh, the doctor in Blob.
The doctor.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry,
the doctor in this.
Because he plays a doctor.
The doctor in the Blob. No, he's got like 2 lines.
Okay.
In this.
No. So we've got the sheriff as well who's introduced, and we've got Meg and Paul, her high school boyfriend, played by Donovan Leitch, and it's all introduced. You know, the classic meteorite falls from the sky. It's always a homeless man, and he always has a dog.
Yeah.
And he always dies.
Yep.
It's a shame, but it's just how it goes.
Yeah.
He finds the blob in the crater in the meteorite and is quickly assimilated and melted and whatever. And it just so happens that Brian, he kind of goes by Flag and Brian. I don't know which one. I've not come down on one side or the other.
Yeah, Flag.
It
feels kind of funny calling
Mr.
him
Mr.
Brian.
Flag.
Brian doesn't strike me as a very...
He's not a Brian.
A very tough guy name. I got to be totally honest.
Yeah, we'll go with Flag then. So Flag kind of comes across the homeless guy. He was out doing tricks. He was trying to jump over a bridge earlier on and bumps into the homeless guy, and he's like laughs at him and pours out a beer for him. He bails, which I thought was funny. But he kind of tries to help the homeless guy when he gets hit with the blob. And Meg and Paul are out on their date, and they almost run the guy over. So all 4 of them end up in the car on the way to the hospital. And I mean, this is the first 5 minutes of the film. There's not a huge amount of introductions,
I
guess.
It doesn't take too long to get into.
Yeah,
to get into it.
It's not a huge amount of introductions. Just sort of the very basic who everyone is and what they're all up to. So they go to the hospital. It's all full. The doctors and nurses aren't interested in treating a homeless guy without insurance, which is so scary that was a joke in the 1980s and is still relevant now.
Yeah.
But anyway, and Paul is kind of checking in on Meg, and he's checking in on the guy, and he spots the guy kind of writhing around on the hospital bed and goes over to see him, and he's got his face and his neck is bulging out, and his eyes go white, and it's horrible, and you're like, oh my god, what's happening to him? And so he goes and gets the doctor, and they come back, and he looks fine, and then the doctor pulls off the sheet, and half of his body is melted away. That was I didn't jump, but I was like, oh okay, that's a lot more gruesome than even thought it was gonna be. It was a lot, but it was good. I like the practical effects.
Yeah, the practical effects are really good in this.
Yeah.
Even down to the blob effects themselves look really good. They're all green screen and kind of done with miniatures that are then sort of put in front of the which is a very old style way of doing it, and it looks in some places looks a little bit janky, but I would not be surprised. I choose to believe that was an intentional choice to kind of pay homage to the 50s and the really well-known kind of janky green screen effects that they had in the early days.
It didn't really bother me that much.
It doesn't bother me at all. I
right.
thought it added a bit of charm to it, to be honest.
Especially when the rest of the practical effects were so good. I was like, I'll give it a pass, even if they don't look amazing.
That's the thing that kind of makes me think that the green screen was kind of intentionally looked the way it did, because
possibly.
so many of the effects were so great that it feels really weird that some of them would be bad unless it was an intentional choice.
Very well could have been. Very well. I mean,
I like to believe. I like to think.
Yeah, I want to believe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of connections, by the way. I've got a lot of connections going on here.
What, to the X-Files?
To X-Files,
to various other things.
Other things as well. I'll get to that towards the end of Halloween, but there's a lot of stuff here. Yeah, right. So, homeless guy corroded in half. It's all brutal and gross. Paul's freaking out. He runs into the office and tries to phone the sheriff. What is it he does? I can't remember. He leaves to the other room and is trying to phone someone. And the blob sneaks in and it climbs up the wall behind him and it like falls and the camera cuts and you hear Paul screaming. And you're like, but he's the main character. He's not going to die. It's fine. It's all good. It's just a fake out. So Meg wakes up from her nap, runs screaming into the room, and Paul is like full on getting melted away by the blob.
He's getting blobbed.
He's getting proper blobbed. Like the full on, like, how do you describe it? Like the sort of stretched face and hands against like a sort of plastic wrap style of effect. He's trying to like reach out and he's screaming and his face is like melting away underneath. And then Meg grabs his arm and it rips off because it's melted away. I was shooken.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that at all. Because it's like, okay, he's the jock. He's the
you think he's going to be the main character.
Exactly. It sets it up that way. But then that's him. He's blobbed. He's done.
He's finished.
So the sheriff comes to investigate. Everyone else, Meg's freaked out. The sheriff initially blames Flag for it for some reason. They try and pin it on him because they don't like him and because he's a creep. Another one, the deputy in this is one of the better episodes of the X-Files.
Oh, yeah.
He plays one of the bad guys, one of the aliens in one of the X-Files. Yeah. Paul McCrane.
There you go.
Yeah. He plays Leonard Betts.
Cool. I don't know if I know the one he's from. I've probably seen it if it's from like the first 3 seasons or so. I would have.
Shawnee Smith, who plays Meg, is in the X-Files as well.
Okay,
to say.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of X-Files stuff.
Lots
and
of X-Files stuff.
It comes back around again. Don't worry, there's a lot more connections.
Cool.
Bear with me. Yeah, and so the blob escapes on its own. We don't really see what happens to it, but it goes off and it starts wreaking havoc in the town. It kills a date rapist, which I was pretty happy about.
Yeah.
That scene was pretty gruesome though, because there's the guy and it's Paul's friend.
Yeah,
he's trying to get it on with this girl and she's kind of too drunk and he's being creepy and
actively
weird,
plying her with booze
and actively getting her drunk. He does have that neat bar in the boot of his car.
He does have the bar in the boot of his car, which is incredibly irresponsible.
If it wasn't being used for nefarious purposes, I'd dig it.
It'd be
he does not get a pass.
No,
just because of the cool bar. And the blob like sneaks in the car. And he starts to like try and feel up the girl, but as he does, it turns out that she's been blobbed off screen, and her face like collapses in her itself, and then blobs him and he deserved it.
Tendrils. It comes.
I know it kind of comes and
grabs him.
She didn't deserve it. No. She didn't deserve any of that.
Yeah,
but yeah, poor girl. The guy did. It's fine.
He absolutely deserved it. He
Fuck
deserved
that
to
guy.
get blobbed. The blob does not discriminate.
It does not.
The blob just
unfortunately
comes for everybody sooner or later.
Yeah. So yeah, at this point in the film, I'm thinking like, okay, they're really like going for it. Like these kills are brutal, and it doesn't stop. They try and Meg meets up with Flag because she knows that he's innocent, and they're sort of form a bit of a team up to try and investigate what's going on. They make it to the diner, and the blob, I don't know if it follows them or gets there as well, and kills the what do you call him, like line chef
yeah,
in the diner, like sucks him into the drain, which is again, it's really like brutal. All the kills are really brutal. It's it was a lot. I don't know, man. Like,
I like them. I think they're good.
I like them as well
because they're good fun. They're not.
Yeah,
they're like just the right amount of cheesy.
Yeah.
Well, stops them from feeling too gross. They're not too unpleasant to watch because they're still quite fun. I think.
They don't cross the line. But the waitress, I felt sorry for the waitress. She runs out and tries to call the police from like the phone box outside, but gets like crushed from the outside in. Yeah. There was a wee subplot with the sheriff.
Yeah.
And the waitress getting it on, but he never shows up again.
Yeah. Well,
does he die at some point? Did I miss the point where he dies?
He gets got by the blob. He shows up.
When?
No, it's when she's in the phone box, and she's calling the police, and
there's that body that comes up against the door.
Yeah, the sheriff had already gotten a call like, oh, there's some trouble in town. Go down to the diner and see what's going on. Oh no, he's going down because he's knows that she gets off work, so he's going to go pick her up from work. So he's already on the way down, and then when the blob comes, she calls for help, and then the operator is like, oh, the sheriff's already on his way down to the diner, and then at that point, the like skeleton within the blob or like the dead body in the blob like hits the glass. I missed
that. I thought that was
and she screams and then she gets got.
The chef.
No, that was the sheriff. That was
I
like
completely
he'd already
missed
been
that.
gotten.
That's okay. Never mind.
Or at least I assumed it was. I could be wrong.
That would make sense because the sheriff didn't show up for the rest of the film.
Again, yeah.
And I was like, I must have missed something, or there's like a deleted scene or something. But that makes sense. Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, they all die, so it's fine. So Flag and Meg are kind of team up. He becomes the new protagonist. The duo try to escape the blob, and they come across these scientists in the woods who are investigating the blob and what's going on, and there's something a bit mysterious about it, and you don't really know what's going on. And it turned, I can't remember at what point they figure it out, but they get like quarantined in the town, and Flag escapes. Meg stays and she gets taken back into town, but then escapes later.
Yeah.
After like protesting, like, no, I need to go back to my family, and then she just like leaves.
She leaves before she gets
when
back
the van gets back anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, Flag figures out that it's man-made, that the scientists have come to kind of contain it because they fucked up.
Yeah.
And it is like biological warfare, basically. They know that it's only going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to destroy everything, and blah 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 blah. Evil scientists, government bad.
Yeah, of course. We hate the government.
And like up until this point, right, I wasn't sold on Flag as like the new protagonist. I was kind of like, he's just a bit of a dick. He's one of those guys.
He's like a movie tough guy.
Yeah,
he's just such
and I was kind of like
one-note character.
Whatever. But then he escapes from the scientists. And he gets on his motorbike, and he's riding down the hill, and he jumps over that bridge that he missed
failed earlier.
He jumps over and like gives him the finger while he's jumping over the bridge as the vans crash in the background. Yeah. And I was like, I'm in. I'm all in.
All in behind Flag. Yeah, that moment you can't help but feel a little bit of something for Brian Flag.
Yeah, I was digging it at that point. I was like, I'm 100% Team Flag. So he goes back into town and somehow realizes he needs to rescue Meg. That kind of is very plot conveniency.
Yeah.
That fitting that bit together, they clearly just wrote in a scene where Flag knows where to find Meg because she gets kind of sidetracked. Her little brother.
Yeah, it's her little brother and his friend are out of film.
They go out to the cinema.
Very, very obviously to go and see Friday the 13th, but they couldn't call it that.
Yeah, it was called like Slasher Camp.
It's called something like it's called something like Screwdriver Massacre or something. I thought like the name was maybe supposed to be a reference to the Toolbox Massacre.
Oh, maybe.
I wasn't sure, but it's like the killer's wearing a hockey mask
it's very
well. It's like Chainsaw wearing a hockey mask or whatever.
Yeah,
it's funny.
But they sneak out, they go and see it, and I think like. They were talking about it earlier in the film, so you kind of know what's going on. They're out in the cinema, and the blob attacks the cinema. It gets the projectionist first, and then the usher, and then it sneaks its way into the cinema, and it kind of starts picking people off one by one. Meg realizes that her brother's out at the cinema and goes to rescue him and his friend. They get out. There's a couple of close calls, like when he gets his jacket caught on the door, escaping the cinema. And I was like, come on, man. Like,
gets the hood caught in the door and then he can't get the zip down.
At this point, just
cut your losses and let the kid die.
They escape into the sewers. And yeah, we were talking about this the other week. How you know when a horror film's good when it decides to kill a kid.
Yeah.
And this film goes for it. Because that kid does not... they don't let up on him.
No,
like
he gets done.
Compared to all the other kills, and this one's just as brutal.
Yep.
I couldn't tell if it was the brother or the friend.
It's the friend.
It is the friend.
The brother survives, yeah. It's the friend that gets killed.
They looked so similar. I could not tell them apart.
Pretty similar.
But yeah, they're climbing up a ladder, and the kid like gets dragged into the sewer water by the blob. Meg dives in after him to try and rescue him, but like resurfaces, and then the kid, as the blob, is like emerges out of the water and like screeches and like chases her.
He's all gooey.
Yeah, it's pretty.
He's gotten gooped.
He's been blobbed. It was pretty horrible. But anyway, yeah, the brother escapes. He manages to get up and out the sewers, but Meg needs help from Flag, and conveniently he is there. And that's kind of the whole that bit bothered me. I was like, how does he know where she is?
Yeah,
like you've been fine up until now. Like the blob is running around town killing people. That's all great, but like, don't give me a huge plot hole now. I'm enjoying it. Don't ruin it for me. But yeah, anyway, whatever. I kind of glossed over it eventually after initial anger about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they escape, and everyone makes it to town hall. They have like a standoff with the scientists, because the scientists, Flag reveals that to the townsfolk that it is man-made. It was their fault, and they all get got by the blob who emerges out the sewer. The dude, I had to laugh. The dude with the flamethrower, like there's one of the scientists, lights a flamethrower and like starts shooting the blob, and the blob just like, I don't know, like reflects it back at him. Yeah. And he just sets himself on fire, and then he just like screams, and then he sets the reverend of the town on fire as well. And they're all just like screaming on the
priest
floor.
Gets set on fire.
It's like, come on, man. Yeah, the scene was a bit ridiculous, but they all go and hide in the town hall, and the blob's making its way in. Flag either doesn't make it to the hall or like sneaks right back around the outside. I can't remember. Whatever. He gets to the auto shop where he works.
Yeah,
I guess. They were preparing for winter, and they had like loads of snow skis and what do you call it? Like a snow machine.
Yeah, it's a big truck that they spray snow out of.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but
I guess they have them in these small towns that are known for their kind of winter tourism, I guess.
So he jumps into that. There's this great big, like, sort of epic finale of him driving towards the blob with this big snow machine. Oh, I should have said they figured out that cold bothers it.
Yeah, it doesn't like, because they hide in the freezer in the diner, and it gets in on the door, and then it's like goes ooh, and then it leaves.
They were shooting the fire extinguishers.
The fire
as well.
extinguishers,
the CO2 bothered it, so that's how Flag knows to.
I like the scene when they're hiding in the town hall, and everyone's the guy that takes charge isn't one of the cops. We only saw him right at the beginning of the film. It's the mechanic that Flag works for.
Oh yeah.
And he's like taking charge of the situation and running around with these fire extinguishers and spraying everybody and saving everyone's lives.
Well, the deputy gets got as well.
Deputy gets got. He gets grabbed.
He gets like grabbed and like pulled through this tiny hole in the wall.
Yeah, he gets like grabbed around the torso, and then he like folds in half backwards as he gets pulled through this little hole.
Gross.
Yeah.
But awesome.
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. So yeah, Flag's shooting it with this snow machine. The blob doesn't like that. It knocks the snow machine over, and Flag gets trapped underneath. So obviously, who's going to save him? Not the big men who have obviously trained with their rifles in these little rural American towns, who know how to shoot a gun, who are big brave army men. No, it's the teenage girl,
of course it is,
who's never shot a gun in her life. Picks up a gun and a pack of grenades from one of the scientists, and like waves to the blob and distracts him, and she puts the grenades down on the snow machine, the overturned snow machine, and you're like, oh, she's gonna get away, and the blob's gonna get it, and it's great, and she does this jump, this dramatic jump off the machine, but her leg gets caught, so she just goes like whoomph.
She
smacks her face into the side.
Dramatic jump, and just goes whacks her face into the side of the truck, and it's just kind of dangling there for a minute.
As the grenades with the obscenely long delay on them tick away, Flag manages to break free, and obviously he saves her, and they go and they hide behind the corner, and then the thing explodes, and all the cool, I don't know what you would used to
liquid nitrogen or something, I guess, maybe.
Maybe, or
Don't
just
make it
like
that big
just
of a
like
truck of
CO2 or
liquid
something
nitrogen.
cold. Something
Could be,
cold.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Anyway, it explodes and it's cold and it kills the blob, and we're like, okay, great, fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's saved. It's magic, and Flag gets the girl. Kind of. They have a nice big hug at the end, and the town is left to clean up the remains of the crystallized blob.
It
and
looks so cool
it does look really cool
when it's all frozen. It's like it kind of made me think of like the little Lego bits, like the Lego crystals that you used to get.
Yeah.
It's like really, really kind of harsh, big individual crystals that the blob's all
really,
broken down into. Looks really cool.
Nice. Yeah, like quartz pieces and stuff.
Yeah.
It's nice. But that's not quite the end. We get a little epilogue of
teaser.
sorts with the Reverend, who kind of lost his mind after getting set on fire, believes that the blob is like the end of the world, like the Judgment Day or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's preaching to this group of churchgoers in like it's like a sort of desert.
It's just like in a shack.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it was implied to be, but he's kind of preaching to them, and he's going a bit mad, and he's got like his blacked out sunglass, and his face is all deformed and long hair, and he's just lost it. He's lost his mind.
Yeah.
And a woman comes in at the end and says like, "Oh, preacher, when do you think the end of the world will come?" And he says like, "When God tells me to," and he holds up the glass with a little bit of the blob in it, and it's like, oh, he's in control now. He's gonna unleash that on everyone.
Everyone's gonna get
what
blob.
a psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how I felt about that little epilogue. I was kind of like,
I was actually thinking about it. I sat and I did a bunch of reading. I say a bunch of reading. I read a Wikipedia article, but I was reading up on after we watched Killer Condom.
Yep.
Because this is kind of what the villain in Killer Condom wanted to do. She's like, I want to, or I guess not exactly. It's kind of relatable. But there's this term called immanentizing the eschaton, which is
a lot of big words. Yeah.
Which is where you are trying to like bring about the end of the world by creating like heaven-like conditions on Earth.
Okay.
And it's like kind of like what she was trying to do in Killer Condom. She wanted to like kill all the sinners.
Yeah.
In order to create heaven on Earth. And he's kind of like, he believes that the blob is going to spare the righteous. So he wants to kill everybody, and then that'll be like Judgment Day, you know. I wanted to point that out. I wanted to point out that I know these big words.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That this is this trope that I find kind of funny.
Yeah. It is definitely a trope. It's been used elsewhere plenty of times. But just here I was kind of like, yeah, okay. Fine. Because the original one just ends. They just kill the blob and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think they electrocute it. I think they drop a, like, what do you call them? Power pole?
All right.
Electrical pole
there you go.
on them, and it explodes, and it's great.
No idea. Not seen it.
Okay. But you have seen this one.
I have seen this one.
Why don't you tell me what you thought of this one?
You like it.
Yeah?
Yep. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it quite deserves to be... A lot of people kind of think of it as part of this little trifecta of sort of goofy 50s sci-fi horror movies that turned into really, really great 80s horror movies that is like, more than a trifecta. You've got like The Thing. It always gets compared to The Fly, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
And then this, a lot of people kind of bundle them together as like films that were pretty good in the 50s, but they got like the proper horror treatment in the kind of late 70s into the 80s and are really great and really good. I don't think it deserves to be up next to The Thing and The Fly and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I don't disagree that it is good that it's getting the kind of 80s horror treatment, but I don't think it's really fair to stack it up next to other films like that.
I don't know. I think it has similarities just in how it's framed. In that sort of, I
can see the similarities. I don't
think
in terms of quality.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's quite as good as the other ones.
Yeah,
that you've mentioned anyway. But I think I would probably put it in the same category. Like if you were releasing a box set of remastered, or what do you call it? What would you call it? Like
remakes.
50s remake horror remakes. Like I think I would include that alongside.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good
Fine.
point. Yeah, I think it's overall a fun but really quite generic and not super interesting film. It has its moments. I think the practical effects are good. I think it's a lot of fun to watch. I really like that it does a lot of the kind of tributing to the 50s style really well. I don't know if that's just what small town American towns are like, but it's like the jocks wearing their varsity jackets and the like you've got a greaser as one of the main characters. It feels very 1950s.
Yeah.
Even just down to the way that some of the characters are dressed and everything. So I didn't. I like that about it.
Mm-hmm. What did you rank it? 1 out of 5.
I give it 2.5 stars.
2.5. Okay.
It's. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it to many people. It's a pretty average film, I think. Not particularly good, but also certainly not bad. If you like a goofy 80s movie, I would recommend it. If you're a big fan of like 50s monster movies, I would recommend it because I think it's a good tribute to those.
Yeah. But
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to most people.
Okay. Fair enough. I kind of agree with a lot of your points, but I think it does, even though a lot of what it does is quite generic, and a lot of the tropes it does follow are pretty, like, generic, yeah. I think they do it all quite well for a horror film, and for an 80s horror film, when there was a lot of guff at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I think it stands out above a lot of films. It's not quite as good as the likes of... The closest comparison is probably The Thing, right? Purely when you look at like the practical effects and like the kills. Yeah. I think The Thing is a really close comparison. It's obviously a completely different setting, and things like the acting are a completely different league when it comes to The Thing. But I found a lot of similarities just in how... I don't know if there were or not, but I would not be surprised in the slightest if it was similar teams or members of the same teams working on the practical effects together.
Who was it that did The Thing? Was it Rob Bottin that did The Thing?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I think it was. It wouldn't. Yeah, I think even down to like the kind of the sliminess of it and the bit in the car where the creepy guy gets blobbed. The like kind of tendrils. Yeah. That's very Thing-esque.
They look very similar. But yeah, to me the practical effects were a highlight. Not just a highlight, but like actively I really liked them. I thought they were really, really good. Even though I knew that's kind of what it was renowned for, I was still impressed and I was still like, yeah, you know what? That is pretty good.
Yeah.
The plot was a bit generic, but I liked the sort of subversion of expectations with killing off Paul in the first 5 minutes, or first 10 minutes, I guess, and reintroducing a secondary protagonist. I think that was neat. And other than that, it was a pretty generic horror film, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah,
I thought it was a good laugh, some funny moments.
Yeah, it's a fun enough film to watch.
I gave it 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Pretty good score.
Pretty good. It's not bad. Not bad at all. Yeah, The Blob, it was fun. I liked it. I would watch it again in a few years' time.
Have you seen The Stuff?
Have I seen The Stuff?
Have you seen The Stuff?
No, I have not seen The Stuff.
I potentially would recommend The Stuff over The Blob.
Okay.
It's similar, but a lot more satirical. It goes way off the rails towards the end, but it is basically like, what if a corporation got a hold of the Blob and started selling it as a foodstuff? They sell it as like an ice cream.
Okay.
That's just called The Stuff, but it's this whole big... It's like a satire of how companies sell... I think originally it's supposed to be like tobacco products, how they're deadly, but the corporations don't care. They just sell them as being cool and like making money off of them. Okay. But also like kind of junk food and stuff like that. And it's just a fun film.
It sounds it.
I would recommend it.
Okay.
I would recommend it. I think if you like 1988's The Blob, I would suggest
we'll do a Blob and The Stuff double bill.
Yeah, they'd make a good double bill.
The theme could just be
Goop. Get Gwyneth Paltrow in on.
No, I'm not doing that.
We're not doing Gwyneth Paltrow again.
No, I think
We
that
can't get her back in the studio after what happened on
that
Nostalgia.
bit's run its course.
She's not allowed back in. We've barred her from the studio.
Okay, moving swiftly on.
Moving on.
Do you want to take us through Halloween?
Yes.
I mean, I don't want you to, but I feel like you should. I feel like you should have to suffer. You should have to talk us through
I
this.
did. I suffered for 2 hours when I watched this fucking film. Rob Zombie, for some reason, in 2007, decided to remake Halloween. And then the rest of us are suffering for it, basically. Right. So Halloween is one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
I mentioned in our little introductory episode that it's the film that really made me get into horror films. It's the film that made me realize how good horror films can be and really start to love them. So I thought at least someone who cares enough about the film to remake it is gonna have some kind of respect for it and make something half decent. But no.
How wrong you were.
How wrong I was. This is one of the worst films I've ever seen. It's one of the worst remakes I think that has ever been made. It feels like it just has complete contempt for the source material all the way through. It's awful.
I'm going to disagree with you there. Not that it's awful.
Really?
It is awful.
It is awful.
It is awful. But I never got the impression that it was done with contempt, right?
Mm.
I got the impression that Rob Zombie wanted to do something so different and so much of his own take on the story of Michael Myers that he just turned the dial up to 20.
Yeah.
And went so far in the opposite direction that it just did a complete 360 and hit from shit to good. He went past good and right round to shit again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess.
I've got a weird visual in my head.
Yeah,
of
no,
Rob Zombie turn the dial.
I think yeah.
He tried so hard that he just fucked it up so badly.
Yeah.
And he just needed to rein it in a little bit, and it could have been...
Mm-hmm.
It would never have been as good as the original. That was not
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? But he could have done a decent job if he'd reined it in a bit and actually thought about what he was doing and some of the changes he was making.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll go through the plot. The first half hour of the film is something that is completely missing from the original film, and that is
With good cause.
With good cause, which is a great big long look at Michael's backstory as a child. In this, he's 10 before he gets arrested for
How old is he in
murdering his
the
family.
original?
6,
Younger,
I believe.
okay.
I think he's 6, and then it's 15 years, and then he's 21
Right.
during the film. Whereas in this, he's 10, and so he's, I guess, 25 or 26.
Okay.
Yeah. Immediately, right off the bat, you can tell that they're just trying so hard to make you realize that Michael comes from a broken home. This is not a nice family. It's his dad or stepdad.
Stepdad. Yeah.
It's his sister's stepdad. I don't know if they explicitly say if that's Michael's dad or if that's also Michael's stepdad.
Oh, I don't know.
They don't really get into that.
Don't care,
I would really
if I'm being perfectly honest.
I would have hated it even more if they had bothered to go into it. But yeah, is so clearly an abusive alcoholic piece of shit.
And they
really
make sure to tell you.
They really beat you around the head with that.
Yeah.
He has no redeeming qualities. He is just the absolute cardboard cutout piece of shit, terrible alcoholic, abusive father.
Yep.
The mum is she tries hard, but everyone kind of looks down on her because she's a stripper, which really feels like Rob Zombie just...
Especially it's his wife.
It's his wife
playing what, Mrs. Myers. I don't know what her name is.
They really steer hard into Michael being a little psychopath who likes to torture animals as well, which is something that wasn't in the original.
Yeah.
And it just, all of this stuff really adds up to
And he's bullied at school.
And he's bullied
as
at
well.
school by the little kid from
The
Spy
kid
Kids.
from Spy Kids. I wrote, I was like, is that the kid from Spy Kid? Is he the
He's
Michael
the bully.
Myers
He's the-
villain origin?
He's the bully, is the kid from Spy Kids.
Yeah.
He got beaten up so bad that he decided to marry Meghan Trainor. Yeah, Michael snaps at some point and just beats the shit out of him with a tree branch. And then that's the last we hear of it. That never comes up again.
That doesn't come up again.
He really wants to go out trick-or-treating, but they can't because no one will take him and his mum has to go stripping. So that's when he snaps.
And his sister refuses because she wants to go and fuck her boyfriend.
Get boned down. So that's what causes him to snap, which is like not something that they explicitly say in the original, is that like Michael went crazy because he couldn't go trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't it.
But that works. It works because it's ambiguous.
Yeah.
It's so much scarier just being like, this little kid just snapped
just
one
murdered
day.
his family.
He's just evil.
And now they're like, oh, he didn't get to go trick-or-treating, so he lashed out and murdered his family.
He was abused.
Which
and he
is-
was bullied and giving all this like almost justification
Yeah.
for it.
Completely unnecessary, and it just totally detracts from the character. And he's talking the whole time, which I like. There's not really a reason why I can explain why that's such a big gripe. Like, the fact that Michael is a silent villain doesn't necessarily make the film better. It doesn't necessarily make the original film better. It's not like the whole time I was watching the original Halloween, I was thinking, oh, thank God he's not saying anything. Like, but the fact, as soon as they remake that film and they just make him talk as a kid, it's like, why bother?
Yeah.
Why would you, like, he's never spoken for 30 years and now suddenly you're doing a backstory where he's talking the whole time. Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's so bad. So he kills his sister. He kills the
boyfriend.
He kills the boyfriend as well. He kills the dad. He duct tapes him to his chair and then slits his throat.
Yeah.
He rescues the baby, who they spend so long lingering on the baby that we know it's going to turn out to be Laurie. Also because we've got 30 years of films where that has been the canon and everyone already knows that Laurie is the younger sister.
Yeah, but he had a chance to not do that.
Yeah, he could have not done that.
He
but
had the
did.
chance to just ignore that bit of
He
like
chose to-
weird retcon.
It's more the fact that towards the end of the film, they do the dramatic, like, oh, the little sister is Laurie.
Yeah.
Michael's going after Laurie because it's his little sister. And it's like, yeah, we fucking know.
Oh, by that point, I had tuned out by that point,
It's
man.
been
I was-
30 years of Halloween films. We've seen, there's been, 8 of them at this point?
Yeah.
We know, like, Rob, come on. We know. And even if they hadn't had 30 years and 8 Halloween films over the course of 30 years where this has been the canon and we've already established it, it's so obvious from even just the beginning of the film where they're like, oh, there's a baby and he saves the baby and then we don't see the baby again and then suddenly it cuts to an 18, 19-year-old girl 18, 19 years later.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, of course she's going to turn out to be the little sister.
Yeah.
Like, obviously. Anyway.
The whole, I mean, we get, after he kills the family, we get like a segment of him in the hospital as well, which is just like 10 minutes, introduces Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis as well, who's, like, at this point in the film, he's fine. He's just kind of generic Mr. Psychologist, you know.
I definitely didn't hate him. He might be my favourite part of the film, is Malcolm McDowell as Loomis. Not necessarily, like, Malcolm McDowell as Sam Loomis, not great. Malcolm McDowell himself just playing like a child psychologist is good. It's more the fact that like he's totally not Donald Pleasance that bugs me. I mean, obviously they couldn't get Donald Pleasance back because he was dead, but like, you know.
Yeah. What bothered me about it was how in the original, it's very, when we're introduced to Loomis, he's very straightforward. He's very much like, this kid is evil. Michael Myers is the like embodiment of evil. Do not go near him. Do not talk to him. Do not rationalize with him. He's evil. That's it. Whereas in this one, it kind of gives us more of a typical psychiatrist. Where he's trying to connect with Michael and be pally with him and friends and stuff, even when he grows up. And I was like, what's unique about that? But like, what's good about that? Like, it's just generic.
They're clearly trying to have it both ways because they don't want to steer too hard into the way that it was in the original, where Loomis is, like you say, very much like he's aware that Michael is an evil killing machine. Yeah. He is pure evil. He has the devil's eyes. He is a horrible monster. We need to just lock him up and throw away the key. They don't want to do that for whatever reason. We need to rationalize with Michael because he's got a sob story, I guess. So we need to do this. And then we get the scene, like the first time we see Michael as an adult, Loomis comes and visits him and is like, oh, Michael, you know, you're my best friend. I've spent 15 years, you're my entire life, and I come and visit you all the time, and you're my best friend, and I care so much about you, and I only want what's best for you. And then the next scene, it reveals that he wrote a book called The Devil's Eyes, where he talks exclusively about how Michael is a soulless killing machine. Yep. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I didn't like, because even if it was just Loomis was saying that, and just being nice to Michael, there's absolutely zero indication of him telling anyone else that this kid is as evil as he has written in his book or as he's portraying in his lectures or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no like indication that he is faking it while he's talking to Michael. It doesn't make sense.
It's just completely inconsistent and poorly written, oddly enough. Yeah, I hated it. And then so Michael escapes.
The rest, once the time skips.
Yeah, once the time skips, the rest
more or less beat for beat.
Pretty much. Michael escapes. There's a lot more kind of gratuitous stuff. There's a very uncomfortable scene when a couple of the guards in the asylum take literally the only other inmate that we see, who is a young woman. They sexually assault her in front of Michael, and then Michael murders them. Totally unnecessary scene.
Did I miss this scene?
They presumably, I don't know. Depending on where you watched it, you might have cut it out. I had a copy of it.
I watched it on Netflix.
If you watched it on Netflix, they probably cut it out.
Jesus Christ, I missed either that or I just completely zoned out. Because
the scene when Michael first escapes, he's in his cell, he's like making his masks.
No, there's Danny Trejo, and then there's the other boy.
There's the other boy,
the Walking Dead boy.
So it's him and another guy that looks identical to him, who's apparently his cousin and presumably also a prison guard, or maybe not. The two of them, they like take one of the other inmates out of their cells, or as a woman, take them into Michael's room, start like goating Michael, and then they sexually assault her in front of Michael.
Oh my god, and I missed that scene completely.
Yeah. And then,
I missed that completely.
It's grim.
It's the fuck?
Terrible. It was, for good reason, it was cut out, because it's incredibly like explicit. There was absolutely no purpose for it being in there. Generally, I think it would have been better if they just hadn't included that scene at all, or if you really wanted to do it to show off how bad these people were, you should have implied it. You should not have like graphically shown that happening. It's very graphic. I really, if you, for whatever, do not watch this film, but if anyone out there particularly wants to watch this film, I would suggest watching it on Netflix, I guess, if they cut that scene out. Because
they either
grim.
cut it out or I completely blanked it.
Yeah.
I don't remember that scene at all. I remember him, so it's Danny Trejo and the other boy, and they go and see Michael, and the other boy's like teasing him and stuff, and then they're transferring him or moving him or whatever, and they get like locked in the hallway. Mm-hmm. The guards get locked in the hallway, and they all start like, Michael just beats the shit out of all of them in this little like locked hallway, and then escapes from there.
Oh, right.
Is that completely different then?
I guess it's completely different.
Right.
They basically, they have he kills those two guys. You don't see the woman again.
Oh no.
He kills those two guys. Then there's a nurse or a cleaner or somebody. He kills Danny Trejo.
Does he drown him?
Yeah.
Okay,
that
so
scene's
that
the
scene's
same.
Right.
And there's like another scene, there's another couple of guards in a hallway. It just like cuts to the guards in the hallway. Danny Trejo finds them, and then that's when Michael
that's
then
all
finds
off screen,
Danny
I think.
Trejo. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff cut from there then.
Grim. Incredibly. I wish I had watched the cut version, because that was genuinely very upsetting. It made me want to turn the film off. It's terrible. Bad. Genuinely bad job, Rob. Shouldn't have done that. That kind of tracks with Rob Zombie stuff. It felt very much
especially in the opening half hour, but also a wee bit later on when we're introduced to Laurie and her friends, and just the way they talk, it's so gratuitous and so like,
it's like unrealistic how much they make loads of sexual comments, and it's like no one actually talks like that.
It's really sexual. It's really a lot of swearing every single sentence. And it's just really gratuitous. I don't know how else to describe it. It's so much. And it's
you watch
really
it,
unnatural.
it feels like Rob Zombie was. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought this film was written by a 15-year-old who was just desperately trying to come across as edgy to his friends. Like it's just terrible.
The one I wrote down was when in the flashback or the original half hour, however you call it, when the sister is upstairs with the boyfriend and he says something like, oh, won't your dad mind or whatever? And she says that fucking drunk prick fuck isn't my dad or whatever. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Nobody talks like that.
Nobody
in the world, in the history of ever, has ever uttered those words in that structure.
The dialogue is so bad.
Yeah, it's so pretty
bad.
atrocious.
Like, yeah. We get that with Laurie and her friends.
Yeah, they're all just like teasing
basically
each
back
other.
To the thing. They're
very sexual.
Terrible dialogue while they do the usual thing. Laurie's gonna babysit while the other two go off and have sex, which is what happens in the original. Then we get scenes where they get murdered.
Well, one of the friends and her boyfriend are,
Linda and Bob.
They get together in the Myers house. The abandoned Myers house, but that's not in the original. And then Annie and her boyfriend are over
at Lindsay Wallace's house.
Oh, at Wallace's house, yeah. And then they get killed, or the boyfriend gets killed. Annie's kind of. I think she survives. I don't know. She's on the floor.
I think she's in the sequel. Have you seen Halloween 2?
I am not intending on watching.
I think because that's one of the things that changed from the original is that I think that she comes back in the second one. Annie in this is played by Danielle Harris, who was
is apparently a pretty well-renowned scream queen.
Yeah, she was Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and 5. She's the little girl that's like Laurie Strode's daughter.
I didn't
from Halloween 4 and Halloween 5.
That.
Yeah, she was good in those films. She's not terrible in this, I guess.
She's probably one of the better actors, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, she was in Hatchet as well.
Oh yeah.
Hatchet or Hatchet 2, or both. I don't know. Not seen them. Anyway, yeah.
Her dad.
What else do
Brad
we have?
Dourif.
Brad Dourif.
Wasted opportunity.
Absolutely
to have
wasted.
Brad Dourif in it.
Brad Dourif. You've got Ken Foree's in it
Ken
earlier.
Foree's in it as well,
completely wasted. He's literally just in it. I was thinking about this earlier. I'm pretty sure.
And Sid Haig.
And Sid Haig. He's the groundskeeper in the cemetery.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure what happened was Rob Zombie was like, "Oh, I'm making a film. I'm going to make a remake of Halloween," and he mentioned it to some of his famous horror movie friends. And Ken Foree was like, "Oh, that's cool. I love Halloween. Can I be in it?" And he was just like, "Yeah, I guess." And he just stuck a post-it note with Ken Foree's name on it and like on a random page and was just like, "Yeah, I'll just write in a scene with him."
To be fair, I actually kind of liked Ken Foree's character.
So did I, but we never saw him. He's an original character. He like quotes John Wayne and is like, "I'm gonna fuck you up, boy." And he like, squares up to Michael and then just gets done in. But
he tries his best.
Yeah, he was a cool character. Yeah, I liked him. I wish that they had just written an original film that was just him, I guess. Yeah. What do we have? I'm just flicking through my notes now. Talking about the dialogue being terrible. One of the things I really hated about the dialogue here is that like the way that Laurie talks and the way that Laurie acts, you're given no indication that she's like a kind of bookish virgin like they did in the original. Like you kind of get that immediately from the way that Laurie Strode was dressed in the original, the way she talks. She's like, she cares about babysitting for Tommy Doyle.
She's kind of the odd one out in her
She's the odd one out. She's like, everyone else is going out, I'm going babysitting because I need to save money, I'm going to study, whatever. Like, they really demonstrate really well that that's what the character's like. They don't spell it out for you. In this, they show you the complete opposite. That Laurie is this like wisecracking, very sexual character in the way that she makes all these sexual comments. And then they need to spell out to you that she's a loser by having her friends constantly be like, haha, Laurie, you're such a virgin. And it's like, is she? Is she though?
They make comments
like,
about her finding like Annie's boyfriend's friend.
Yeah.
Is interested in her, and she's like, oh yeah, let's see him then.
And it's like, yeah, and then they keep being like, oh, Laurie, you're such a loser. You just care about books. And it's like, no, she doesn't. we're like, yeah, they do a real, like, just proper terrible portrayal of every single character in this. It's really bad. This must be the scene, the bit when Linda and Bob get killed because they have sex in the Myers house, and then Bob gets up and he says something like, oh, what would you rate me out of 10 or whatever. And I made the note, when I think this is a very important lesson for everyone who's listening, and I looked up our Spotify statistics. You know that on Spotify we have a 100% male listener base?
Oh, I did not know
Not
that.
a single woman listens to us on Spotify so far.
Okay.
Gents, very important lesson for you. If you have to ask if she came, she did not come. And I want you to write that down, and I want you to carry that with you for the rest of your life. That's a life lesson for you from the Happy Brothers. Anyway, so then there's another thing that, like, at this point kind of started to notice, because there had been a few scenes earlier on where I had picked up on it, that the soundtrack is really good. A lot of the songs that they feature, not the original sound, like the score. Like,
the score. Yeah, the score's got some good tunes.
They feature a lot of good tracks. There's Tom Sawyer by Rush. They do Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult a couple of times. They have Halloween 2 by Misfits, which is a really good song. They've got like a good few tracks, and I was like, okay, there's one good thing about this film, and it's the soundtrack. And then I remembered that Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult is in the original Halloween. So literally the only good thing in this film is still just something that they ripped from the original, and it's not like,
even then,
on its own credit.
I mean, the songs themselves are good, but I don't think they fit the tone of the film at all. Don't Fear the Reaper a little bit, but it's so played out at this point.
It
in
is.
Horror films. It's
it
like,
is. But it's a great song. I like hearing it.
It is.
I mentioned it. It was an X.
It was an X, yeah. But I don't know. It just didn't fit with the film. Like when they do Tom Sawyer at the bit after Michael escapes the institution.
It's like the truck
and
stop,
that's when it
Ken
introduces
Foree.
Ken Foree.
Yeah.
And it's playing, and it's like the intro. It's like ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
Ba, 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 ba. I'm going to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm not really. But the way they introduce it's like really heavy and like involved. You need to be listening to it. But if you're listening to the music, you're not paying attention to what's happening. Mm-hmm. And that's the moment where Michael's like snooping about and he's trying to escape, and I don't know, it just didn't fit at all. Yeah. It didn't fit. Didn't like it.
Yeah, the way they use the soundtrack definitely isn't great.
If it had been playing on the truck speakers, as he pulls in, that would make sense.
That would have been good.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
But it keeps playing at full volume after Ken Foree leaves the truck.
Yeah.
I was like,
and when he goes to the toilet and he's just sitting and looking at porn on the toilet.
Yeah.
As you do.
He sure is.
Apparently. Yeah, the way that they use the soundtrack in this is really bad, because like the first time that we hear the iconic Halloween theme that they use a couple of times throughout the film is right at the beginning of the film, when Michael is like, his parents are getting in trouble because he's like killed a cat, and it cuts to him like, and it's just him like running out of the school.
Yeah.
As a 10-year-old. That's when you play the Halloween theme for the first time. Yeah.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work
terrible.
at all.
It's terrible. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, rounding off the film, it is literally like beat for beat the original.
Pretty much.
They have a showdown in the house.
We get towards the end. We get a little bit that they took from Halloween 2, the original, where you get the actual reveal of Laurie being Michael's sister. But Michael goes down. He's like kidnaps Laurie and takes her into the basement where he's got Linda's dead body and the gravestone. Yeah. So he's like doing that scene earlier, but he's not trying to kill her. He just puts his knife down and he shows her the photograph of her as a baby, and then she leaves, and then and then they do the whole thing. Loomis shoots him, and then it turns out he's not actually dead.
Did we watch a completely different film?
I don't know.
That's not what I saw.
Did they change the ending? What happened to the ending when you watched it?
Did we watch a different version?
You watched a different version, maybe.
Because he like chases her out of the basement, and then he kills Loomis. He like crushes Loomis's head.
Yeah. So she runs and she falls into like the swimming pool.
Yeah.
And then Loomis shoots him a couple of times.
Yeah.
Then
and he goes down.
Then Laurie gets up.
Yeah.
They go back to the cop car.
Yeah.
That's when they do the whole, that was the boogeyman, wasn't it? And then he's like, yeah, it was. And then he grabs her out of the car. Grabs her out of the car. And then he kills Loomis.
And then she shoots him in the head.
Shoots him in the head.
Okay, so maybe
that's the end of the film.
I just misunderstood.
Well, the end of the film is she shoots him in the head and then she starts screaming and then it cuts to shots of her crying as a baby while being held by Michael, which is maybe the worst ending to any film I've ever seen. And worse than The Fog 2005. Yeah, terrible. There are so many like dumb little things that I picked up on. There's like, they use a title card once. They have like the Halloween title card at the beginning. They have a couple that's like, there's one that's like 11 months later. Then there's one that's like 15 months later or something.
They have like the Majora's Mask like boom on the screen as well as like 2 days remain.
It's ridiculous.
18 years later.
Dawn of the final day or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's one like 3/4 of the way into the film that's just like, I can't even remember what it said. It said something stupid. It was just like All Hallows Eve or something like that. Yeah. And I immediately had the thought, I was like, what is this? Frasier? Like, what are we doing? But just title cards halfway through the film. This is so stupid. Yeah. It just, so many things that they did that were just terrible. Like, why would you make this film?
So half a star, yeah.
Half a star. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my final note on it was, this movie makes Halloween 5 look like fucking Casablanca.
That's a good note.
Halloween 5 was formerly my least favorite film in the franchise. Like, there are some bad films, like Halloween...
Yeah, 5's pretty bad.
Halloween Resurrection is maybe the worst in terms of, like, quality, but it's a lot more fun to watch. It's stupid. That's the one where Busta Rhymes does Kung Fu.
Busta Rhymes, yeah.
But Halloween 5 Revenge of Cookie Woman, like that's just a bad film. That's a bad film. And this was like, this blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
This was just terrible.
Yeah, this was appalling.
Yep.
I hated it.
I'm genuinely sorry for making you watch this.
You should be.
And I hope you take solace in the fact that I had a terrible time watching it.
a little bit. Yeah. I still had to watch it though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah, my last note was like, it really just ends like that, huh?
Yeah, it really does.
Because I was like, that's it.
That's just the end of the film.
And then they have a sequel. Somehow a sequel got greenlit.
Yep. And
people paid money for that film.
I guess. You know what absolutely blows my mind? The other day, so I watched this on Monday. On Sunday, the day before I watched it, I mentioned to one of my friends who's a big horror movie nerd, that I was watching this, and they said, you know what, I really stand by the Rob Zombie Halloween films. And I thought, well, you know what, I care about your opinion, and I usually agree with you about, I think we have similar taste in films, so maybe it's not going to be as bad as I think it is. Lou, I have no idea what's wrong with you, but you got to pull your head out your ass, okay? This movie is terrible.
Would you like to get them on the podcast?
Absolutely, I would like to get them on the podcast, and we can talk about this.
Because I have some choice words for anyone who thinks this film is anything more than utter garbage.
Yes, this was a terrible film.
And come to think of it, like, it's funny that you say it's like, sounds like it's written like a 15-year-old boy, because that was the last time I watched House of a Thousand Corpses, when I was an edgy 15-year-old kid. And I genuinely think that if I rewatched it now, I'd probably roll my eyes as much as I did at this.
Probably, yeah.
Because the dialogue is pretty similar. Like, that's his style of writing. All this like blatantly, overtly sexual comments and swearing and weird analogies. Yeah. I don't think I would have as good time watching his other films. So, fuck you, Rob Zombie.
Oh, God.
Fuck you for making me do this.
You know what?
He seems like a sound guy.
Stick to music, Rob.
But Yeah, his music's pretty good.
His music's pretty good. I mean, you make Dracula, you get one pass. That is this one film. I'm not watching any of his other films because I do not want my opinion of him to deteriorate any further.
Yeah.
Below neutrality.
Yeah. It just sucked. Don't recommend. Don't waste your time. I renewed my Netflix subscription for this.
Oh, you poor bastard. Oh God. No.
Okay, so we'll end on a fun note, right? Okay, so we had X-Files actors in the Blob. Right?
Yeah.
We had Shawnee Smith. Was that her name?
Yeah.
Was in the episode called Firestarter, I think it was called. We had
is that the one with Mark Sheppard?
No.
When he's
No. Firewalker she's in.
Right.
Fire is the one with Mark Sheppard.
Fire is the one with Mark Sheppard.
We had Paul McCrane playing the deputy in the Blob. He was in an episode called, I already said it and I can't remember it now. Leonard Betts is the name of the episode. And we have Jeffrey DeMunn, who played one of the scientists in the X-Files movie.
Right.
In Halloween, we have Brad Dourif, who plays Luther Lee Boggs in Beyond the Sea, which is one of the best episodes of television of all time. You can quote me on that. Yeah. It is an amazing episode.
It is a good one.
Easily one of the best X-Files episodes. We also have Tyler Mane, who plays the adult Michael Myers. Now, Tyler Mane was an actor in The Scorpion King. Do you remember who directed The Scorpion King?
Okay,
it was Chuck Russell.
Nice.
Who directed The Blob.
There you go. It's a fun little...
I told you it was fun.
Fun little connection.
Yeah.
There you go.
I thought I was quite excited by that.
Yeah.
That's a fun little thing.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah. I like that. Now let's be done with this.
We're done.
Film.
I'm not... The problem is... Oh, no, that's not true. I was going to say the problem is I now only have one Halloween film that I've not seen. But that's not true because I've still not watched Halloween Ends.
I've not seen Halloween Ends either.
Yeah.
We should watch Halloween Ends.
We should.
I'm kind of worried because Halloween Kills was awful.
Halloween Kills was bad. So I am worried about Halloween Ends. But yeah. Yeah.
It's fine. We'll pick a good theme.
Take a break before we cover any more Halloween films.
But next week we will be back with our theme, which, thanks to our random generator and our list, our backlog of themes, we have the best soundtrack.
Yeah.
So
very excited because I love a good soundtrack.
I love a horror soundtrack.
I listen to horror soundtracks while I'm working.
The only sad thing about this is films that we've already picked are probably what I would choose. Like The Fog, for me, is probably the best.
Certainly one of the best, yeah.
It Follows as well, which we just had last week, was a great soundtrack. So I struggled a wee bit. I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Let me know what have you picked for next week.
So yeah, I had a really hard time picking because there are so many good ones. I went through. I have a playlist on Spotify of really good horror movie soundtracks that I just like to listen to. Like I say, when I'm working or whatever.
Very relaxed working atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it makes nice kind of ambient. It's like kind of soundtrack. That's good. So I was going through them and I was just thinking of so many films. And am I going to pick one it's a film that I know I love, that I've seen at least a few times before? Am I going to pick a new film that I'm only really wanting to watch purely because I know the soundtrack is good? In the end, I settled on a film that I haven't seen before. I just know that it's got a really good soundtrack. And the main reason that I've picked it above any others is because I'm probably going to have a bit of a hard time fitting it into any other theme.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit of a strange one. Is Michael Mann's The Keep from the early 80s.
Okay.
Not...
Is that the one German?
Yes.
German...
Not super well remembered. It's based on a book. It's set during the Second World War.
Yeah.
It's about a group of Nazis in Romania, I think, who unleash some ancient evil and all get got by some monster. But the soundtrack is by Tangerine Dream.
Oh, okay.
And I love an early 80s synth soundtrack, and it's so good.
Yeah,
it's
I love
so good. I'm really excited to watch this.
20-minute long tracks on your
man.
albums, man.
Oh, love a bit of Tangerine Dream.
3-hour long
excited.
CD, like.
Yeah. This is going to be a good one. I'm very excited.
Okay, The Keep. That's cool. I've never seen The Keep, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I settled on the side of one that I know that I love. I know has an amazing soundtrack. I had a couple of ones behind it just in case, but I've decided to go with this, and I'm curious if you will allow it or not. But I'm willing to argue my case.
Okay. I'm interested to see why I might not want to pick it, or why I might not allow it. Is it not really a horror film?
I'm going with Sunshine.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Now, technically, it is billed as a sci-fi thriller, but I would heavily argue that it is a horror film. It is a sci-fi horror, and I'm willing to argue my case.
Okay. No, I agree with you. I'm more than happy to watch Sunshine.
Have you seen it before?
I've not seen it before.
Excellent.
Yes. I know that you love it though, because you've told me for
absolutely
about 20 years that I should watch it.
John Murphy does a soundtrack. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Looking forward to it.
Possessor was also billed as a sci-fi thriller rather than a horror.
That's true.
And we covered that.
Yeah, that's true.
And also at the end of the day, it's our podcast, so we can talk about whatever fucking movie we want.
That's also very true.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great choice. I'm excited to watch that.
Cool. Good. Do you want me to tell you my backups?
Yes.
So I had for my backups, if I wanted to punish you
Okay.
for picking Halloween this week, I was going to pick Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
That's not a punishment. That's my second favorite Halloween film.
You're an idiot.
I love Halloween 3. Oh man, Halloween 3 is so good.
So bad.
No, Halloween 3 is great.
The only redeeming factor is the soundtrack.
No.
What are you on about?
It's a great
man?
film.
I should have picked that because that would have given more of a
It would have
discussion.
been very funny. But yeah, no, man, that film rules.
Okay. No.
I love Halloween 3.
No. I had The Exorcist.
Oh yeah, great soundtrack.
But I came down on the side of really it's only the theme
It's really only Tubular Bells.
that's amazing.
And
it is amazing.
It is. It's all barely in the film.
But it's only in
Disappointingly
like, one
in for about 10 seconds or something.
So I
yes.
kind of...
That was my big disappointment when I watched The Exorcist, is I was expecting that to be like
know,
all the way
it's
through
really
it, and it's
not.
really not.
Bit of Mike Oldfield.
Yeah.
And my last backup was Suspiria.
Suspiria is a great one.
But I watched it recently.
Yeah.
Wasn't thrilled.
No.
And can't really be arsed watching it again so soon.
Fair enough. I don't absolutely love Suspiria. It does have a great soundtrack. Interestingly, the one that I was going to pick that I was kind of toying with is one that I know and love already. That has an amazing soundtrack. It's actually another Dario Argento one. Also a Goblin soundtrack is Tenebrae.
Tenebrae, I was about to say.
That's maybe one of my favorite horror soundtracks ever. That's an absolutely banging soundtrack. I was listening to it on the way on the drive here. I was listening to it. That's a cracking soundtrack.
You ever listen to Justice?
No.
Oh, have I got a track for you after
perfect.
this?
Great.
Okay. Right, yeah, we got totally sidetracked there. But yeah, next week, best soundtrack.
Yep.
We've got The Keep.
The Keep.
And Sunshine.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think that'll make a good double bill. That's exciting.
I think that's a good
couple picks.
Yeah. Well,
very exciting.
Thank you for joining us. Apologies if you've been watching along. If there's what few of you that do listen to the podcast, if you have been watching along and you did decide to watch Rob Zombie's Halloween in preparation for this,
yeah,
apologies, because it
find
sucked.
us on Twitter or on at Fratricide Pod if you like Halloween. If you like Rob Zombie's Halloween, please tweet at us and tell us why. I'm really curious to hear people's justifications for why they like this film.
And I will personally give you an insult.
Yes.
Of my choosing.
Personalized insult.
Personalized insult. It'll be brutal.
Yep. As you deserve for liking this stupid film.
Okay. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye bye.
Goodbye.